Imagine being trapped 1,000 feet underground in absolute pitch-black darkness. The air is thick with coal dust, and you know you only have about 30 minutes of breathable air left. Suddenly, through the solid stone wall next to you, you hear it. Tap. 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 A rhythmic metallic knocking. Your heart leaps. You think it's a rescue team. You grab a rock, bash it against the wall, and wait for a response. But the silence is deafening. Then you realize something that makes your blood run completely cold. The knocking wasn't coming from the direction of the surface. It was coming from deeper inside the collapsed tunnel, from a place where no living human could possibly be. It was a cool spring morning in the mining town of Fraterville, Tennessee. At 7:30 a.m., over 200 men and boys kissed their families goodbye and descended into the Fraterville coal mine. Among them was Jacob Vowell, a seasoned miner, and his 14-year-old son, Elbert. By 8:30 a.m., they were miles deep into the earth, and then the mountain shook. A massive methane gas explosion ripped through the main shafts of the mine. The blast was so powerful, it blew the heavy ventilation fans completely out of the mountain. Up on the surface, the town went dead silent. Everyone knew exactly what that sound meant. Deep underground, the initial explosion was devastating. But deep within a side passage known as Entry Number 15, Jacob Vowell, his son Elbert, and 24 other miners survived the blast. They were alive, but they were trapped. The explosion had collapsed the main exit, sealing them inside a stone tomb. But Jacob was an experienced miner. He knew that after an explosion, the real killer wasn't the collapsing rocks. It was the black damp, a heavy toxic mix of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide that suffocates you in minutes. Jacob ordered the men to build a barricade. Frantically, in the dark, they piled up rocks, mud, and broken timber, sealing off their small section of the tunnel to keep the toxic gas out. Once the wall was built, the 26 men sat down in the suffocating darkness, and they waited for a rescue team that they prayed was coming. To understand what happened next, you have to understand the psychological torture of being trapped underground. When the final oil lamp burns out to save oxygen, the darkness is absolute. You cannot see your own hand touching your nose. The silence is so heavy, it physically hurts your ears. In this environment, your brain starts to turn against you. Hours passed. The air grew incredibly thin. Jacob Vowell knew that time was running out. So, feeling his way in the pitch black, he found a piece of paper and a pencil. He began to write a letter to his wife, Ellen. This letter is a real historical artifact, and what it contains is absolutely heartbreaking, but also deeply unsettling. Jacob wrote, "Ellen, darling, goodbye for us both. Elbert said the Lord has saved him. We are all praying for air to support us, but it is getting so bad." But as the letter continues, the tone shifts. The men in the dark began to experience things. The psychological strain of the pitch-black environment, mixed with the thinning oxygen, led to strange phenomena. Some men whispered that they could hear movement on the other side of the collapsed rock. Jacob wrote, "I can hear them, but they are too far away." Here is where the history becomes terrifying. Up on the surface, rescue crews were desperately digging through the rubble, and several rescuers reported something that haunted them for the rest of their lives. As they dug toward Entry 15, the rescuers paused to listen, and through the solid rock, they clearly heard the rhythmic, metallic tap, tap, tap. The rescuers cheered. They doubled their efforts, believing the trapped men were signaling them. They followed the knocking for hours, but the knocking never seemed to come from the barricade. It seemed to echo off the walls, moving deeper into the shadows, leading the rescuers in circles. When the rescue team finally broke through the barricade into Entry 15, they found a tragic scene. All 26 men, including Jacob and little Elbert, had peacefully passed away, having succumbed to the toxic air. But when the coroner examined the scene, a chilling realization swept over the rescue crew. Based on the oxygen levels and the medical examinations, Jacob and his men had passed away within just a few hours of the explosion. But the rescue teams had been hearing the rhythmic tapping on the walls for 3 days. If the 26 men behind the barricade had been gone since day one, who or what was tapping on the walls? To the company executives, it was just the sound of the mountain cooling and shifting. But to the Appalachian locals, the answer was obvious: the Tommyknockers. The entities in the dark hadn't been signaling for help. They had been mimicking the trapped men, luring the rescuers, perhaps hoping to cause another cave-in and claim more lives. This isn't just an isolated incident from 1902. The legend of the Knockers persists to this very day. Take the account of a modern coal worker in West Virginia who shared his story anonymously just a few years ago. He was working the night shift, driving a transport cart deep into a massive, mechanized tunnel. He was completely alone. Suddenly, the power to his cart died. As he sat there in the silence, waiting for the backup generators to kick in, he heard it. Tap. 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 It was coming from the wooden supports directly above his head. He didn't know why, but a wave of absolute, primal terror washed over him. He abandoned his cart and sprinted back down the tunnel toward the main shaft, using only the light of his phone. 10 seconds later, the exact spot where his cart was parked experienced a massive roof fall. Thousands of pounds of jagged rock collapsed, crushing the cart instantly. Did the mountain just happen to shift? Or did something in the dark tap on the wood to warn him? Or perhaps, whatever was knocking was the very thing trying to bring the ceiling down on him. The Appalachian Mountains hold secrets that are older than humanity itself. And as long as men continue to dig into the dark, there will always be things waiting in the shadows. If you ever find yourself deep underground and you hear a rhythmic tapping echoing from the abyss, don't wait around to find out who is knocking. Just run. Thank you for watching. If you want more dark, mysterious, and unexplained stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until next time, stay out of the dark.